What if I told you that tinnitus doesn't have to control your life? What if I told you that you could get to a place where it doesn't even bother you? You never even notice it. It sounds impossible, right? I'm going to show you exactly how I got to that point and how you can too. This is the most important information that I wished I had when I first got tinnitus. And if you stay till the end of the video, you're going to see exactly how people just like me are recovering from tinnitus and going on to reclaiming their lives. So like most of everyone that suffers with tinnitus, when I first got it, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I was freaked out. My mind spiraled into the worst case scenario and all of the terrible outcomes that would probably happen that, looking back, never did. But at that point, it was like my brain had been completely hijacked by the sound. And no matter what I did, I was doomed to live with this terrifying sound for the rest of my life. Then my mind kept going back and forth about all of these horrible things that were going to happen to me and how I was never going to be happy again. And no matter what I did, I was never going to turn the sound off. And I just remember that I was Googling and scrolling through videos and online forums, just looking for any bit of relief that I could. And what no one told me was that the sound itself was actually a trigger to a feedback loop. That when I heard the sound, had I just shrugged it off and not given it any power over me, my mind would have probably written it off as just some benign sound and into the background that it would have went. And I know this is true because I have talked to people who have tinnitus and they say, well, I never thought anything of it and it's never became a problem. That's how I know that the tinnitus sound itself isn't the problem. It's your brain's reaction to it. Because, like I said before, I know a lot of people who have ringing in their ears and they've never considered that it was ever a problem. And because they never thought that it was a problem, it never became a problem. And so I did everything to try and fight it. I avoided silence because silence was my biggest trigger because I didn't have silence anymore. I had this loud, obnoxious ringing. I would try and mask it constantly by working outside next to this air conditioner that would kind of fade it out of my awareness. I avoided certain supplements. I didn't take aspirin because I heard aspirin would trigger tinnitus. And round it goes. I was trying to find some cure that maybe I didn't know about, and I came across a lot of scammers, and I realized that all of this stuff was just making it worse. It was focusing my awareness onto the tinnitus itself. And this was when I realized that the problem was in how people approach tinnitus. They fight it instead of making space for it to exist. And ironically, when you allow it to be and you stop trying to fight it, you rob it of its power over you. And that is what sets the stage for you to begin to habituate. And every single person that suffers with tinnitus makes the same mistakes. They fight it. They treat it like an enemy. They try and get rid of it instead of allowing it to exist and giving it space to be there. They try and erase the sound, which you can't. You can only change your reaction to it. That is the only thing that you have power over. And I got into a lot of Stoic philosophies, and I realized that my suffering wasn't what happens to me, but internally how I choose to process the things, the negative things in my life, the things that I can't stop, how I choose to react to them is everything. The only thing that I really have control over is my reaction to the things that happen to me. I have no control that I have tinnitus, even if I played loud music when I was a kid. I had no way of knowing that was going to negatively impact me the older I got. How would I have known that? There's no possible way I can blame myself for what I did in my childhood. So here's what I did that really set the stage. I stopped checking for it. That's right. Now, this was very difficult at first, and like most of you, my brain automatically focused on it. And I would each time gently bring my awareness to something else. Maybe I would play a video game or try and make a video of YouTube video, or I would go out and have social hour with my friends, or I would not, instead of laying in bed, I would get up and no rumination. That was my rule. No rumination. As soon as I opened my eyes, I would get out of bed and I would get my life going. And it was very difficult for the first few weeks. I didn't even want to get out of bed. I just wanted to stay there and wallow in this realization that my silence was gone. But I knew, and I understood that if I ruminated over it, I was only forcing myself to listen to it and to continue checking on it. And I had to stop checking on tinnitus. I had to begin to train my brain to stop looking for the sound. And the next thing I did was I started to use sound masking strategically. Instead of keeping it on all the time with like earbuds in my ears, and I never wanted to hear silence. I hated silence because silence wasn't silence for me. It was a trigger. It was a trigger because it's the second the sound masking was off, the tinnitus, the ringing was right there, and that triggered a negative emotional reaction. And then in came the anxiety and depression. And then my focus was on the tinnitus, and round it went. And it was like this endless, vicious, hellish loop that I couldn't seem to break out of. But I realized that the sound masking, being addicted to it, was only going to essentially make silence my trigger, because what happens when I couldn't have the masking in my ears? What happens if my earbuds died? What if I was going to be hijacked and a slave to this sound that was masking the tinnitus? So I started using it very strategically, and I started doing sessions where I would listen to the masking. I would learn to listen to my tinnitus. Okay, I would learn to listen to your tinnitus. This was groundbreaking for me, because I never knew what I have to learn to listen to it. I have to learn to hear the sound, the very thing that I hate, that I can't stand. You're telling me I have to learn to listen to it? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm going to explain to you why this is so powerful. Because learning to listen to your tinnitus is a meditative practice, and this is how you train your brain. You train your brain by exposing you to the very thing that you hate. It's called exposure therapy. It's grounded and it's rooted in science. It is the most effective way to helping people with phobias break the thing that they hate, that they can't stand, that they are afraid of. Exposure therapy, meaning if you're afraid of the high dive, you need to get up there and you need to jump off the high dive. Maybe not all at once, start slow, gradually build up that confidence so that you can begin to jump higher and higher and higher. But avoiding the thing that you are afraid of is the very thing that's going to shrink your comfort zone. It's going to keep you trapped in a small world in existence. And so what I did was I put sound masking on. I kept it low enough where I could still hear my tinnitus, and I would practice being in the sound, hearing the sound, and not freaking out. That's right. I practice listening to the sound and not freaking out. And let me tell you, this is extremely difficult to do because your mind wants to freak out. So the key to this is you want enough of this sound that's triggering you to be there, but you don't want it too hard at first. You don't want to hear it too much at first. You want to balance where it's just challenging enough, but it's not like emotionally overbearing. So when I first had tinnitus, there was no way I would put earplugs in and just be in silence, because that would be too much. Now I can do that because I've built my tolerance up to a place where I don't even hear it. But that takes time. But that really is the key: learning to listen to the tinnitus sound. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking around to the end. I'm gonna tell you the number one thing. I think that if you just did this, I think it would probably get you to a place where you're not hearing it and not being bothered by it. It would take some time. It takes months. It's not something that's quick. There is no quick fix to tinnitus. Unfortunately, we don't have that right now. Maybe in the future. But again, I wouldn't go around looking for that, because that's basically going to trigger to your brain that tinnitus is a threat. But the number one thing that I would say is to get back to living life. You see, the cure isn't found in a computer screen. It's not found in forums. It's not found in trying to think your way out of it. The cure really is living life, because when you live life, it's in those moments that you actually forget about the tinnitus. People say, I hear it 24/7. It's like, what I ask my coaching with clients that I coach with, I say is can you remember a minute where you didn't hear it? Okay, you hear it 24/7. Was there ever a time, maybe you're playing with your dog, maybe you were playing with your kids, maybe you were taking a shower, was there a moment where you didn't notice it? And most people I talk to will say, yeah, there was a moment I didn't actually, I was playing my kids last night and I didn't notice it. Or I was, I was taking a shower and I didn't hear it. Or maybe I was, doing something else, riding my motorcycle or doing a hobby or something like that. And I said, see, that's the habituation. That's the recovery. If you can forget about it for just 1 second, you can extend that for the rest of your life. And that's the secret. If you can forget about it for just 1 second, you can habituate. You can learn to get to a place where it doesn't bother you. And that's what you have to rely on. You have to take into account. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to think back in your life. And was there ever a moment where you didn't hear it? And if you're being honest, there probably was. So if you're thinking about it all the time, it's because you've trained yourself to think about it all of the time. And if you can train yourself to think about it all the time, you can train yourself to not hear it, to not think about it, to not notice it. And if you follow all the steps in this video, I'm confident that you can get to a place where I've gotten. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can always unsubscribe later. Share this video with someone who's dealing with tinnitus and may not believe that there is hope, because I'm telling you, I was there. There's hope for me, and there's hope for you. Thank you all. I'll talk to you later.